Today we are going to be discussing transatlantic encounters between Europe and the New World discovered by Columbus and several of the other explorers. Today's focus question that I would like for you to think about as we go through is, how did European exploration affect the Americas? We say our focus topic also today is Columbus's voyages set off a chain of events that bring together peoples of Europe, Africa, and the Americas. And this is the start of the story of the United States. And Portugal and Spain had been a couple of countries who were leading the world in exploration at this time. Portugal began to explore more areas of the world as Prince Henry the Navigator continued to create inventions and new methods for exploration. In 1487, Bartholomew Diaz sailed around the tip of Africa to find a new route for India and China. And in 1498, Vasco da Gama used this same route to create quite a profit for the Portuguese between India and China and Portugal. So the Spanish looked to open up the Atlantic Ocean for exploration. They didn't want to get left behind in the exploration of the world. They hoped to one day reach China by heading west across the Atlantic from Spain. Many people of this day and age thought the world was flat, and this age of exploration proved this theory was not true. Christopher Columbus was an Italian, and he was given a charter to sail by Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand to sail for Spain in 1492. And again, a charter is just permission from the king or queen to explore for a country. His main goal, as he decided to go to the west, was to settle China and convert the Chinese to Christianity. He hoped, just as other explorers for the Spanish, as they moved west, they could eventually reach China, going around the world the opposite way from the Portuguese. And they felt as though if he could capture or settle or colonize the Chinese, that he could use their wealth and their power and their products that they had there in China to defeat or outpower the Muslim world. So as Columbus sails for the New World, he is given 3 ships and 90 men. The Nina, the Pinta, and the Santa Maria are his 3 ships. He set sail from Spain, and in roughly a month, I think it's 33 days, he reaches the Bahamas. One of his main goals also, gold, land, and religion. A lot of explorers during this time talked about the concept of God, glory, and gold. They wanted to expand Christianity. They wanted to find glory, become famous. And they wanted to find gold so they could become wealthy. The Spanish send Columbus out to explore, and he returns in 1493 upon discovering some islands in the Caribbean. They occupy these islands. They begin to go into Cuba. They begin to go into some other areas. But over time, Columbus led 3 voyages. In 1493, he returned to Spain a hero. He had found the New World. Some historians would tell you that Columbus was a failure because his plotted course, he didn't know that there was America here. There's no river through America. And he felt like if he plots his course, that would put him in China, where he landed in the Caribbean. His plotted course would have put him somewhere around Los Angeles. His second voyage established a colony to trade between the New World and Europe. Upon returning, he discovered that the Native Americans that were there had basically murdered, slaughtered, captured, done away with, whatever word you'd like to use, with the people whom he left behind. So he decided to go to using force for the term for colonizing this area. Colonization is establishing and controlling distant settlements. The Spanish wanted to create Caribbean colonies. Columbus decided to use force to do this, military force. The issue at hand is that the Spaniards came and took some of the things that they desired. No one really discussed these things with the Native Americans. Columbus did not find Asia or China, but he did find a path to wealth. And this helped the Christian nations to create a wealthy, powerful exploration and wealthy and powerful countries. As the Native Americans were resistant to some of what Columbus and the Spaniards who colonized the Caribbean, Native Americans were resistant to them and their desires for the Native Americans to work for them. Native Americans were very warlike toward the Spaniards. The Spanish went to Africa to capture some of the Africans on the coast of Africa and enslaved them and brought them back to the Caribbean and forced them into labor. This was the first system of slavery. Now, there were a lot of things that occurred between the British and the Spaniards and the Native Americans and the Africans. There was an exchange between the two worlds, or the three worlds, that took place. The Columbian Exchange is named obviously for Columbus. Thousands of Europeans began to migrate or move to the New World for wealth and riches and spreading the Christianity to everyone. And between those two, Europe and the New World, the Columbian Exchange occurred, which was just an exchange of goods and ideas and different things. From Europe, Africa, and Asia to the Americas, there were things that were brought such as wheat, bananas, rice, sugar, chickens, cattle, pigs, horses, and many diseases to which the Native Americans were not resistant. And many Native Americans died due to smallpox and other diseases their immune systems could not adapt to. From the New World back to Europe, there were things that were taken such as beans and maize, potatoes, sweet potatoes, pumpkins, squash, tomatoes, peppers, and one of the more profitable products that's grown in the United States and in the colonies for the world, the tobacco plant. And we're going to see over the time you're in this American History 10 that tobacco becomes a very popular crop. But that exchange of goods between those three areas of the world was known as the Columbian Exchange. Finally, the rivalries that occurred here between the Spanish and the Portuguese, and they all fell up under the Roman Catholic Church's rule or reign or whatever. And so the Pope decided to go with both leaders. Let's work out a agreement for who settles what, because it was becoming heated and warlike very rapidly between the countries of who is gaining what land first. So they wrote in 1494 the Treaty of Tordesillas, which divided the Western Hemisphere. The New World of exploration was divided. They drew an imaginary line in the middle of the Western Hemisphere. I mean, the Portuguese really had an idea to explore the western coast of Africa and the Indian Ocean. And the Spaniards, or the Spanish, really wanted to take the lands that Columbus had discovered. So between those two, they agreed to do such. As the line was drawn, most of the Americas, North America and South America, was given to the Spanish, and most of the rest of the Western Hemisphere, which included Brazil, was given to the Portuguese. So the Western Hemisphere became divided during the Treaty of Tordesillas. Now, this treaty was not enforceable, as it says here in the last bullet. Once the British, or as it says here, the English, the Dutch, the French, and all these other countries realized the wealth that can be found in the New World, they all move and start to colonize these Americas. So it's not just the Spanish are the only ones who can colonize. And over the time of this course, you're going to see the British and the French come to power, and you're going to see the Spaniards and the Portuguese kind of fade away. These three cultures coming together was very important to the development of America. This is the story of America as we know it. The three cultures of the Africans, the Native Americans, and the Europeans coming together, and that is a direct result of something that Columbus started out with a small exploration group of 3 ships and 90 men trying to find a path to China. Lastly, I would like to leave you with a question for today, and I would like for you to think about this. What was Columbus's purpose in sailing west across the Atlantic? What was Columbus's purpose in sailing west across the Atlantic?